All right, ladies and gents, boys and girls, I have this all wrapped up. I want to give a big thanks to Monkey Fab. He sent me some fittings and hose that he has. It's not PTFE, but it is ethanol safe. Very easy to use, nylon, rubber. So it's a nylon jacket with a rubber hose, and it has just regular-ish fittings. What's really neat is these push together super easy. You just push them together. They don't have like the threading, but they have ribbing and a little bit of, say, like axle grease or high temp grease. I tried using spray lube and some other stuff, but the grease worked the best. They'll go together no problem. They'll start to lock up if you don't. You can get them flush, but you're like, man, I'm really twisting the hell out of this thing. So obviously you're supposed to do that, but I did it both ways because I forgot and for fun, and that's my story and I'm sticking to it. So I like this tank more than the radium one for a few reasons. I mentioned when I was assembling it the size. Also, it's kind of ambiguous. Like, you can do whatever you want with the pumps and block ones or the others. It's that time of year for the crickets, kids. Welcome back, crickets. What's also neat, I think I said, is all three of these are open. 1, 2, 3. They're open. This is the feed, and this can be fill, return, overflow. It doesn't matter. What I like about it is if you have a continuity and everything is flowing, you don't have to, like, the radium has predefined ones, so you can run into a issue where, like, you have to overlap a bunch of hoses or do funny business. With this, any one of those can do anything, and that's the high pressure out. That's it. That's all. You can literally hook these up in any direction, aesthetically or physically or all of the above. So that is super cool. Also, I really enjoy that. They made everything a little bit bigger. They got rid of the wiring for a third stage, but I agree with them. That's a waste. Other than for testing, it's pretty much a waste of real estate on the cover. You're not going to be going 1, 2, 3. You're always going to be using a primary and some facet and then turning on pumps 2 or 3. So that's why it says stage 1 and 2. It doesn't say pumps 1, 2, because you could have a third. So that's the second stage. I'm curious what the PWM stuff gets me. I redid the entire wiring here. One note is this is a 10 to 10. So that's a 10 orb fitting with a 10 AN on it straight. And then this is these are all -8 orb. So I put the feed together. Since all this stuff was 10 already, I just ran a 10. And then I realized that this is an 8. So I had to buy a 8 orb to a 10 for my fill. And then this is the high pressure out. This comes back from the rails as the return. And this is what you would call the overflow that goes back to this guy. And this is a vent with no tube. This is a no tube fitting also you could do as a return. This is supposed to be the pickup tube, so this has a tube that goes down pretty far. I hooked this up as the return overflow to the main fuel cell here because, you figure less aeration, even though it's going to be coming out low pressure. But, given the choice, this was the, in theory, smarter decision, right? So that is all of that. Also, I ran my lines up front here. Quick notes. Previously, I jammed the regulator and everything down here to take up less space, and that's hard to work on, number one. Number two, it's difficult to orient, and then it does look nice once it's down there, but then if I do rails, I may do rails, like this has the factory returnless guys, so it has to hit the regulator, pass through, and then go into the stock feed, single feed. So if I do rails, I don't want to make it difficult to do that either, so I'm thinking I make the hose long enough if you do like the rear feed and then the regulator in the front somewhere. I want to make sure all of it's long enough. I can always cut it down later, so I might make it kind of ugly and like lay it in here, simply so I don't have to redo this portion so much, if that makes sense. And then it's sledgehammer, air hammer time. Do some tunnel massaging, since the rest of this should be ready to go. What I'd like to do is get the fuel stuff together and maybe cap the feed, and then it'll just return and I can test all my pumps. And then if it fills and everything's good and there's no leaks, what I can then move on to is PWM, this guy, pulse width, and see if I can change the percentages on the pumps and everything. That's next in line. It's all possible. People are doing it, so we'll see if we can, and I will share what happens. Also, I replaced this. I think I talked about this previous episodes. I have a giant wire mesh micron pour-in triangle jazz fuel cell filling thing that I love, and also the tiny neck one. This guy, you couldn't put the funnel in it, so it was like all a wobbly mess. But with this, like the funnel will sit way in this nice. You can also just reach your hand in there. In case you're hiding drugs, you can get to them pretty easy through this access port, much easier than the other one. I can't get my hand in that 175, but for, you know, accessing your hidden baggies or whatever you kids are up to, totally possible.